After more than 500 years after stepping ashore on the Caribbean island of Hispaniola, Christopher Columbus is a divisive figure in the new world he opened to European explorers and settlers. On October 14th, as many Americans celebrate Columbus Day with a fall cookout or big sales at the mall, others will observe Indigenous Peoples Day, a holiday born of protest against a historical icon now accused of genocide. Columbus was once universally revered as a hero, the brave navigator from Genoa, Italy, who defied critics to seek out a western passage to India. Sure, he miscalculated the distance from Spain to India by nearly 8,000 nautical miles, but he stumbled onto two entirely unknown at the time new continents in the process. And no, Columbus never actually stepped foot in North America, but most Americans still saw him as the nation's de facto discoverer. But then a new image of Columbus began to emerge. From his journals, we learn that when Columbus first met the peaceful indigenous Taino people of the Caribbean islands, whom he described as very well made, with very handsome bodies, and very good countenances who didn't carry nor know anything of arms, his first thought was to enslave them. They would make good servants. With 50 men they can all be subjugated and made to do what is required of them, Columbus wrote. On Columbus' second voyage to the Americas, he rounded up 1,500 native Arawak Indians, men, women and children, and held them in pens while his ships prepared to sail back to Spain. He chose 500 of the best specimens to be taken to Europe and sold as slaves. 200 Arawak died on the journey. An even worse fate awaited those who weren't shipped off as slaves. Through a combination of forced labor in Spanish colonies and European diseases like smallpox, the native populations of the Bahamas and Hispaniola were virtually wiped out within decades of Columbus' arrival. Over time, as attitudes and perspectives have changed in American life, many people have come to question the merits of celebrating Columbus Day. There are several reasons why Columbus Day has become controversial. Normally, the notion of discovery means encountering a place or an idea for the very first time. Columbus discovered a set of continents where millions of indigenous Americans had been living for thousands of years. Rather than celebrating these existing cultures, the Columbus Day holiday focuses on an explorer who brought attention to them. While Christopher Columbus has often been declared the discoverer of America, this is not historically accurate. There's evidence that other explorers arrived on America's shores long before Columbus, including Leif Erikson, who came to Vinland, believed to be modern-day Newfoundland, 5 centuries before Columbus' historic voyage. Zheng He, who may have sailed to America as early as 1418. Saint Brendan the Navigator, whose journey to the Americas would have predated Leif Erikson's by about 400 years. And I also contend the Phoenicians, who were world-class traders, may have reached the Americans long before anyone else. The Phoenicians have been identified with the trading of Michigan copper as well as tobacco and cocaine from South America long before the Common Era. If we wish to commemorate the first non-American explorer to reach the Americas, perhaps one of these other groups might be a more appropriate choice. Some might question why we continue to celebrate Columbus Day. For better or for worse, Columbus' voyage shaped much of our world as we now know it today. It opened up the Columbian exchange between the Western and Eastern hemispheres. Again. I'd like to add the word again because I think the trade practice just began again. The American continents had been completely lost and forgotten after the end of the Pleistocene geological epoch. It has also been reported that through the Columbian exchange, horses were introduced into the Americas, where they became an integral part of the daily life and culture for many native peoples. I'll add here the word reintroduced. As we all now know, or should know, most of the credited discoveries were actually rediscoveries. The native peoples discovered were survivors of a cataclysm that had formed tribes and completely forgot the origins of their own ancestors. New scientific findings suggest that a large comet may have exploded over North America 12,000 years ago, explaining riddles that scientists have wrestled with for decades, including an abrupt cooling of much of the planet and the extinction of large mammals. The period in question is called the Younger Dryas. It's an interval of abrupt cooling that lasted for about 1,000 years and occurred at the beginning of an interglacial warm period. Evidence for the temperature change is recorded in marine sediments and ice cores. According to the scientists, the comet before fragmentation must have been about 4 kilometers across, and either exploded in the atmosphere or had fragments hit the Laurentide ice sheet in northeastern North America. Wildfires across the continent would have resulted from the fiery impact, killing off vegetation that was the food supply of many of larger mammals like the woolly mammoths, causing them to go extinct. Since the Clovis people and other cultures of North America hunted the mammoths as a major source of their food, they too would have been affected by the impact. Their culture eventually died out and only survivor tribes remained. So, when the Americas were rediscovered, no one living knew what had occurred thousands of years before. Now, back to the celebration of Columbus Day. The celebration in the United States appears to be in a transitional phase. While it is still recognized as a federal holiday, it has been eschewed in several cities and is only a paid holiday in 23 U.S. states. Some would argue that Columbus Day is best left in the past, or perhaps replaced by an alternative holiday. But societal attitudes often change long before traditions, which is why Columbus Day is still a part of American life today. I love paid holidays, but it's time to move on. Maybe we should celebrate the Day of the Dead, which is when the impact actually happened.